Imagine waking up one morning and deciding to walk to the edge of the known world. Sounds insane, doesn't it? Yet this is precisely what our ancestors did tens of thousands of years ago. Have you ever wondered what compelled those first humans to leave everything behind and venture into the unknown? What incredible force of nature or inner drive pushed them beyond the familiar landscapes of their African homeland? Picture this. Small bands of humans, equipped with nothing but primitive tools and an unquenchable curiosity, standing at the shores of the Red Sea, gazing across waters that led to lands no human had ever stepped foot on. What courage must have filled their hearts? What mixture of desperation and hope must have fueled their resolve? And if I told you that you carry within your DNA the markers of these ancient journeys, that every step taken by our ancestors has shaped who we are today? Scientists can now trace migration patterns through genetic markers, revealing an incredible story written in the very fabric of our being. The slight variations in our appearance, our immunities to certain diseases, even some of our behavioral tendencies, all bear witness to the diverse environments our ancestors adapted to during their global journey. When you look in the mirror, you're seeing the culmination of thousands of generations of survival against incredible odds. Your ancestors crossed scorching deserts, traversed freezing mountain passes, paddled across treacherous waters, and adapted to environments so diverse it's almost beyond comprehension. Some developed lighter skin to absorb more vitamin D in northern latitudes. Others evolved specialized lung capacities for high-altitude living. Many developed immunities to local diseases through interbreeding with other human species they encountered. This wasn't just physical movement across landscapes. It was humanity's first great experiment in adapting to radical change. With each new territory came unprecedented challenges: different predators, unfamiliar plants, extreme weather conditions, and encounters with other human species like Neanderthals and Denisovans. These weren't just chance meetings, they were fundamental chapters in our evolutionary story, leaving genetic legacies that continue to influence human health and ability today. Before we embark on this incredible journey through human history, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the Dawn of Humankind channel for more fascinating adventures into our past. Join our community of history enthusiasts as we explore the remarkable story of how a single species from Africa became the planet's most widespread and adaptable creature, forever changing the face of Earth in the process. Our story begins approximately 70,000 years ago in the African savannas. The species Homo sapiens had already emerged around 300,000 years earlier, evolving in the cradle of humanity, East Africa. By this time, early humans had developed sophisticated cognitive abilities, complex language, and remarkable tool-making skills. Small populations of these anatomically modern humans had spread throughout various African ecosystems, adapting to diverse environments from coastal regions to inland grasslands. However, something extraordinary was about to unfold: the greatest migration in human history. This wasn't a planned expedition with maps and provisions, but rather a gradual multi-generational movement driven by necessity, curiosity, and opportunity. The trigger for this momentous journey was a complex interplay of environmental factors. Earth was in the grip of the last major ice age, and climate patterns were shifting dramatically. Research from ice cores, fossilized pollen, and geological records reveals that Africa's climate was becoming increasingly unstable. The once verdant savannas that had sustained human populations for millennia began transforming into more arid landscapes. This climatic transformation wasn't uniform. Some regions experienced devastating droughts, while others saw increased rainfall. The megafauna that early humans hunted began migrating to follow changing vegetation patterns. Lake levels fluctuated wildly, and once reliable water sources disappeared. Evidence from archaeological sites across East Africa shows abandonment patterns consistent with environmental stress. Genetic studies indicate that around this time, the human population in Africa experienced a significant bottleneck. Scientists estimate that the entire global human population may have dropped to as few as 10,000 reproductive adults. Our species nearly vanished before its global journey had properly begun. This environmental pressure created the ultimate evolutionary challenge for our ancestors: adapt to increasingly harsh conditions or seek new territories. Those who remained developed specialized hunting techniques for arid environments, while others began following animal migrations along water routes. Some groups ventured northward, following the Nile Valley, while others moved toward the coastlines where marine resources offered reliable sustenance. The key innovation that facilitated this expansion wasn't simply physical adaptation, but social and cultural evolution. These early humans had developed complex symbolic thinking, allowing them to share knowledge across generations through language, art, and ritual. Archaeological evidence from sites like Blombos Cave in South Africa reveals sophisticated symbolic behavior: ochre processing, shell beads, and abstract engravings, all indicating the cognitive foundation necessary for adapting to new environments. It's worth noting that this wasn't the first time humans had ventured beyond Africa. Earlier species like Homo erectus had expanded into parts of Asia and Europe hundreds of thousands of years earlier. However, what made this migration different was its scale, speed, and ultimate success. Within a relatively short evolutionary time frame, roughly 60,000 years, our species would establish populations on every habitable continent except Antarctica. This migration wasn't a single event, but rather a series of pulses, with small pioneer groups venturing out, followed by periods of settlement, adaptation, and further expansion. The initial exodus likely occurred across the narrow Bab el-Mandeb Strait, connecting Africa to the Arabian Peninsula, when sea levels were significantly lower due to the Ice Age. From this beachhead, humans would begin the most remarkable journey any species has ever undertaken. Imagine a young mother, perhaps 20 summers old, skin weathered beyond her years from constant exposure to the elements. She carries her infant securely wrapped against her back with strips of animal hide, carefully crafted to distribute the weight evenly across her shoulders. The child, just 6 months old, sleeps soundly, lulled by the rhythm of his mother's determined stride as she crosses the narrow strait of Bab el-Mandeb between Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. This crossing, made possible by dramatically lower sea levels during the Ice Age, spans only about 12 miles at its narrowest point, yet represents a monumental threshold in human history. With each footprint she leaves in the sand, this young mother isn't merely searching for food. She's writing the first chapter of a global story. Her genetic markers, mitochondrial DNA passed down through maternal lineages, will one day help scientists trace this very journey through her countless descendants. She belongs to a band of perhaps 25 individuals, an extended family unit typical of hunter-gatherer societies. They travel light but carry the essentials: stone tools wrapped in leather, dried meat, water in animal bladder containers, fire-starting implements, and most importantly, generational knowledge stored in their memories and shared through stories. At her side walks a seasoned hunter in his prime, a man of about 35, extraordinarily old for this era. His body bears the scars of countless hunts, including a badly healed fracture on his left forearm from a confrontation with a wounded gazelle 3 seasons earlier. His eyes constantly scan the horizon, reading the landscape with an acuity modern humans can barely comprehend. He notices subtle changes in vegetation that indicate proximity to water, distant movements that reveal potential prey, and weather patterns that might force a change in course. This hunter has never before tracked game in this new territory, but he's applying principles learned through lifetime observation. The animals here, Arabian oryx, wild asses, and gazelles, behave differently than their African counterparts. Every successful hunt in this strange land adds to the collective knowledge that will determine the group's survival. Near the front of the group walks an elder woman, perhaps 45, ancient by Paleolithic standards. Her status within the group is paramount, not despite her age, but because of it. She carries the collective botanical knowledge accumulated through countless seasons. As they travel, she constantly examines unfamiliar plants, cautiously testing new specimens through smell and tiny taste tests. Her knowledge of medicinal plants has saved numerous lives, including treating the hunter's infected arm wound with a poultice of mold-covered leaves, an early application of antibiotics thousands of years before their formal discovery. The group's dynamics reveal complex social structures. There's a primary male leader, chosen not merely for physical strength, but for wisdom in decision-making. Leadership is situational. When crossing difficult terrain, the most experienced climber leads. When foraging, the botanical expert directs activities. When negotiating with another band they might encounter, those with the strongest kinship connections take precedence. Children as young as 6 actively contribute, gathering small insects and plants while absorbing crucial survival knowledge through observation and play. Adolescents undergo intense apprenticeships in specialized skills, learning to knap stone tools, track game, identify plant properties, navigate by stars, and preserve food through drying techniques. Communication between group members happens through a fully developed language with complex grammar, abstract concepts, and specialized vocabulary for their environment. They use this language not just for immediate needs, but for transferring knowledge, telling sacred stories that encode survival information, and maintaining social bonds through shared cultural narratives. Each migrating group represents a complete cultural package, carrying with them not just physical tools, but entire worldviews, origin stories, spiritual practices, music traditions, social structures, and technological knowledge. The diversity between different migrating bands, some emphasizing coastal resources, others specialized in hunting large game, others expert in plant utilization, created a mosaic of adaptive strategies that ensured our species' ultimate success across dramatically different environments. Their decisions weren't driven by grand visions of exploration, but by immediate necessities, following game, escaping conflict, responding to climate change, or simply the universal human curiosity about what lies beyond the horizon. Yet collectively, these ordinary people, through countless small decisions, initiated humanity's greatest journey, forever altering the destiny of our species and the planet itself. The tools our ancestors carried during their epic migrations weren't merely primitive implements. They were masterpieces of innovation that represented the cutting-edge technology of their era. Each item demonstrated sophisticated understanding of materials, physics, and environmental adaptation that would ultimately enable humans to conquer every habitable environment on Earth. Projectile points stand as perhaps the most revolutionary technology of this period. Unlike earlier hominids who relied primarily on thrusting spears for close-range hunting, Homo sapiens developed sophisticated hafting techniques, attaching carefully crafted stone points to wooden shafts. Archaeological evidence from sites like Pinnacle Point in South Africa reveals that by 70,000 years ago, humans were heat-treating silkrete stone to improve its flaking properties, demonstrating an advanced understanding of material transformation. The iconic African Middle Stone Age points, symmetrical, thin, and exquisitely pressure-flaked, provided the technological edge that allowed hunting of dangerous game from safer distances. As these early humans migrated across diverse environments, they adapted their projectile technology accordingly. In forested regions, shorter throwing spears optimized for close-range encounters became prevalent. In open grasslands, atlatls, spear throwers, effectively extended the human arm, generating greater force and distance. This technological adaptation continued as humans entered new environments, culminating eventually in specialized regional innovations like the Arctic harpoons of the Inuit or the boomerangs of Aboriginal Australians. Clothing technology represented another crucial innovation. Archaeological evidence suggests that by the time humans left Africa, they had mastered sophisticated hide processing techniques. Specialized stone scrapers found throughout migration routes show consistent wear patterns from animal skin preparation. Experimental archaeology demonstrates that these tools were used in multi-stage processes, removing flesh, scraping inner membranes, and treating hides with natural tanning agents like animal brains, smoke, or certain plant extracts. The construction of tailored clothing represented a remarkable technological achievement. Bone needles dating to about 40,000 years ago reveal sophisticated sewing techniques that allowed form-fitting garments. Impressions in clay and rare preserved specimens show that these early clothiers understood complex pattern making, creating layered clothing systems with different materials for insulation, water resistance, and mobility. This technological innovation was crucial for survival, as humans pushed into colder northern latitudes during the Ice Age. Perhaps most astonishing were the early watercraft technologies. While no actual boats survive from this early period, indirect evidence confirms their existence. The settlement of Australia by at least 65,000 years ago required crossing open water gaps of at least 50 miles, far beyond swimming capability. This suggests that early human migrants possessed sophisticated maritime technology, likely including some form of raft or simple boat constructed from available materials like bamboo, reeds, or hollow logs. These watercraft weren't crude accidents, but engineered solutions. Experimental reconstructions demonstrate that binding bundles of reeds or bamboo creates naturally buoyant vessels capable of supporting substantial weight. Simple steering mechanisms like paddles or poles would have allowed controlled navigation in coastal waters. The cognitive ability to conceptualize, construct, and navigate such vessels represents a remarkable technological achievement that literally opened new continents to human habitation. Tool standardization across vast distances represents one of the most intriguing aspects of early human technology. When archaeologists unearthed early stone tools in parts of India, they were struck by their remarkable similarity to African counterparts. Specific manufacturing techniques, like the distinctive Levallois method of core preparation, appear virtually identical across different continents. This standardization suggests not just migration, but the transfer of precise technological knowledge across generations and vast distances. This technological consistency is particularly evident in the spread of microliths, small standardized stone blades, across migration routes from Africa through the Middle East into Asia. These versatile tools could be attached to various handles for different purposes, creating a modular toolkit that allowed adaptation to new environments while maintaining core technological principles. This pattern resembles finding the same signature brand across different continents, revealing the cognitive cohesion of our species despite geographical dispersion. Fire technology served as perhaps the most transformative innovation. By the time of migration, humans had advanced beyond simply maintaining naturally occurring fires to mastering controlled ignition. Archaeological evidence shows sophisticated hearth construction techniques that maximized heat efficiency while minimizing fuel consumption. Portable fire-starting kits, typically including pyrite for striking sparks and tinder materials, allowed humans to bring this crucial technology into new environments. The control of fire transformed human capabilities. It extended waking hours, deterred predators, and most importantly allowed cooking, a process that dramatically increased caloric extraction from foods and neutralized natural toxins in many plants. This technology effectively expanded the human diet, enabling adaptation to environments with unfamiliar food sources. Storage and carrying technologies, less visible in the archaeological record but equally important, enabled sustained migrations. Ethnographic studies of modern hunter-gatherers reveal sophisticated container technologies using natural materials, watertight baskets sealed with resin, animal bladders for liquid transport, and woven carrying devices. These technologies allowed nomadic groups to transport resources between seasonal camps and maintain emergency supplies during migrations through resource-poor environments. Did you know that some of the earliest tools found in Asia are nearly identical to those from Africa? It's like finding the same trademark across different continents. This technological consistency across vast distances isn't coincidental. It represents the intellectual heritage of a species that maintained precise manufacturing standards despite geographical separation. When archaeologists uncover specific tool types, like Howison's port-backed blades or distinct bifacial points across multiple continents, they're seeing evidence of cultural transmission spanning thousands of miles and countless generations. And what about you? Which ancient technology do you think was most important in enabling these migrations? Was it projectile weapons that allowed hunting in new environments, clothing that permitted survival in harsh climates, maritime technology that opened new continents? Or perhaps fire mastery that transformed survival possibilities? Leave your opinion in the comments, like this video, and hit the notification bell to never miss an adventure on the dawn of humankind. The journey of early humans out of Africa was far from a smooth passage through welcoming landscapes. Our ancestors faced extraordinary challenges that tested the very limits of human adaptability, ingenuity, and resilience. Each new environment presented unique obstacles that required technological innovation, social cooperation, and biological adaptation to overcome. Consider the brutal crossing of the Arabian Peninsula, a region that today contains some of Earth's most forbidding deserts. While climate conditions 70,000 years ago were somewhat more favorable than present, paleoclimatic data reveals that migrants still faced extended periods of extreme heat and water scarcity. Archaeological evidence from early migration sites like Al-Wusta in Saudi Arabia shows how humans adapted by following ancient river systems that have long since disappeared. Analysis of ancient lake beds reveals that these early travelers strategically moved during brief green corridor periods when monsoon patterns temporarily transformed desert regions into navigable grasslands. The physiological challenges were immense. Modern experimental studies with trained athletes demonstrate that even well-prepared humans struggle to maintain water balance in temperatures exceeding 100 degrees Celsius. Our migrating ancestors developed sophisticated behavioral adaptations, traveling primarily during cooler morning and evening hours, constructing temporary shade structures, and developing specialized water-finding techniques by observing animal behavior and plant indicators. Isotope analysis of ancient human remains from these regions reveals seasonal migration patterns that followed water availability. As human groups pushed northward, they encountered the formidable mountain ranges that stretch across Central Asia, the Hindu Kush, Pamirs, and Himalayas. These massive geological barriers posed challenges of extreme altitude, oxygen deprivation, and bitter cold. Archaeological evidence shows that humans didn't initially cross these mountain ranges directly, but instead followed river valleys and natural passages through these mountainous regions. High-altitude archaeological sites dating to approximately 40,000 years ago demonstrate that humans had developed technological adaptations for cold weather survival, including stone-lined hearths designed to maximize heat retention and specialized hide processing tools for creating insulated clothing. The cognitive challenges of navigation across unfamiliar territories cannot be overstated. Without maps, compasses, or written directions, Early humans relied on sophisticated mental mapping abilities, celestial navigation, and landmark recognition. Anthropological studies of modern hunter-gatherers reveal extraordinary spatial cognition abilities, the capacity to create detailed mental maps spanning hundreds of miles, recognizing subtle environmental indicators, and navigating through unfamiliar terrain using astronomical observations. These same cognitive abilities must have been crucial for our migrating ancestors. Ocean crossings represented perhaps the most daunting physical barriers. The settlement of Australia by at least 65,000 years ago required crossing open water at distances that ruled out accidental drift or simple rafting. Recent oceanographic modeling suggests that even during periods of lowest sea levels, reaching Australia required crossing water gaps of 50 to 60 miles, necessitating planned voyages with sufficient supplies and navigational understanding. The cognitive leap required to conceptualize the existence of land beyond the visible horizon represents one of humanity's most remarkable achievements. The biological challenges of new pathogens and unfamiliar foods tested human physiological adaptability. As migrants entered new ecosystems, they encountered novel bacteria, parasites, and viruses to which they had no immunity. Genetic evidence shows numerous adaptive mutations in immune response genes that spread through populations following migration routes. Similarly, encountering unfamiliar plant and animal species required careful experimentation to determine which were edible and which were toxic, knowledge that had to be gained through dangerous trial and error or careful observation of local wildlife. Predator adaptation posed another significant challenge. Each ecosystem harbored apex predators with hunting strategies unfamiliar to African-adapted humans. In Europe, cave bears and cave lions represented threats unlike anything encountered in Africa. Archaeological evidence from Denisovan and Neanderthal sites shows that these archaic humans had developed specific defensive strategies against local predators, strategies that Homo sapiens would have needed to learn quickly. Analysis of early European Homo sapiens settlements reveals sophisticated site selection, prioritizing defensible locations with good visibility and limited access points. Perhaps the most profound challenge and opportunity came through encounters with other human species. As our ancestors spread through Eurasia, they met other hominin species who had left Africa hundreds of thousands of years earlier and evolved separately. Neanderthals had adapted to European conditions for over 200,000 years, developing specialized cold-weather biological adaptations and sophisticated hunting techniques for large Ice Age mammals. In Asia, the enigmatic Denisovans had evolved regional adaptations to high-altitude environments and tropical conditions of Southeast Asia. These encounters were complex, multifaceted interactions. Genetic evidence confirms interbreeding between Homo sapiens and these archaic human species. Modern humans of European and Asian descent carry approximately 1 to 4% Neanderthal DNA, while some oceanic populations carry up to 6% Denisovan genetic material. This interbreeding wasn't merely incidental, it represented a crucial transfer of adaptive genetic material. Modern Tibetans still benefit from a Denisovan inherited gene that facilitates oxygen absorption at high altitudes. Some immune system adaptations in modern humans came from Neanderthal interbreeding, providing resistance to Eurasian pathogens. Archaeological evidence suggests these interspecies encounters weren't uniformly peaceful or hostile, but represented a complex spectrum of interactions spanning thousands of years. Some sites show evidence of competition for resources, with Homo sapiens eventually outcompeting archaic humans through advantages in social organization, communication, or technological innovation. Other locations reveal long periods of coexistence with potential cultural exchange, as demonstrated by similar tool technologies and symbolic artifacts. This interbreeding wasn't simply a biological transaction, but represented profound cultural exchanges that shaped human development. Archaeological evidence suggests Neanderthals taught early Homo sapiens valuable techniques for cold weather survival and European resource exploitation. Isotope analysis of early European Homo sapiens remains shows dietary patterns initially mimicking Neanderthal subsistence strategies before developing distinctive approaches. The challenges of these migrations selected for specific human traits that define our species today: exceptional adaptability, innovative problem-solving, social cooperation, and information sharing across generations. Each barrier overcome, each desert crossed, mountain traversed, or sea navigated, filtered for these adaptive traits and shaped the collective human genome. When we examine the geography of these ancient migrations through the lens of modern physiological understanding, the achievement becomes even more remarkable. Our ancestors didn't just survive these journeys. They established thriving populations that continued adapting and innovating in each new environment they encountered. The human capacity to transform challenges into opportunities for innovation became our species' defining characteristic, a capacity still evident today as we face new global challenges, requiring the same adaptability demonstrated by our migrating ancestors. Just as our ancestors had to adapt to new environments as they migrated across continents, today we face our own climate changes and migration challenges on an unprecedented scale. The story of human migration out of Africa offers profound lessons that resonate with contemporary global challenges. Lessons not merely of historical interest, but of urgent practical value. The archaeological and genetic record of human migration reveals that adaptability has been humanity's defining strength. Our ancestors encountered radical environmental shifts as they moved through diverse ecosystems, from African savannas to Arabian deserts, Asian mountains to European ice fields. Each transition required technological innovation, behavioral flexibility, and social reorganization. This wasn't merely physical adaptation, but cognitive flexibility, the ability to reimagine their relationship with the environment and develop novel solutions to unfamiliar problems. Modern climate change presents similar adaptive challenges. As temperature patterns shift, sea levels rise, and weather extremes intensify, human communities worldwide face disruptions to agriculture, water systems, and settlement patterns. The archaeological record demonstrates that successful adaptation wasn't achieved through rigid resistance to change, but through creative engagement with new realities. Ancient climate adaptations weren't instantaneous. They developed through iterative experimentation, knowledge sharing, and technological innovation. The paleoanthropological evidence reveals that our ancestors survived dramatic climate transitions through three key strategies that remain relevant today: mobility, technological innovation, and social cooperation. When environments became uninhabitable, ancient humans relocated to more favorable regions, a pattern we see emerging in modern climate migration. When resources changed, they developed new tools and techniques to exploit different food sources, just as contemporary agriculture must adapt cultivation methods and crop varieties for changing growing conditions. Perhaps most significantly, social cooperation intensified during periods of environmental stress. Analysis of archaeological sites during climate transition periods shows evidence of expanded trade networks, resource sharing between communities, and knowledge exchange across previously isolated groups. This lesson that collective response to environmental challenges produces more successful outcomes than isolated competition has critical implications for modern climate policy. The ancient human migration record also offers important lessons about human resilience. Our ancestors weren't merely passive victims of environmental change, but active agents who shaped their environments through fire management, selective hunting, and early forms of environmental engineering. This historical perspective challenges fatalistic views of climate change, highlighting humanity's capacity for agency even amid significant environmental transformation. Migration itself, so contentious in contemporary political discourse, appears in the archaeological record as humanity's essential adaptive strategy. For most of human history, population movement in response to changing conditions was the norm rather than the exception. The genetic evidence of ancient human migration reveals that geographical barriers were less significant than social and cultural boundaries. This historical perspective invites reconsideration of modern migration policies, suggesting that human mobility represents a fundamental adaptation strategy rather than an aberration to be resisted. The archaeological record of human-Neanderthal interaction offers particularly nuanced lessons about cultural contact. These encounters between distinct hominin populations resulted not in absolute victory or defeat, but in complex cultural and genetic exchanges that benefited both groups. Modern humans acquired crucial cold climate adaptations and regional knowledge, while contributing technological innovations to Neanderthal groups. This ancient model of cultural exchange, where diverse groups bring complementary strengths to shared challenges, offers an alternative to zero-sum conceptions of cultural interaction in modern migration contexts. Genetic evidence from ancient migrations demonstrates that human populations have always been dynamic rather than static. The concept of pure ancestral populations is contradicted by DNA analysis, showing continuous admixture, adaptation, and change. This lesson challenges ethno-nationalist narratives that invoke imagined ancestral purity, revealing instead that human biological and cultural history is characterized by constant hybridization and adaptation. The time frame of ancient human adaptation offers both caution and hope for modern climate challenges. Archaeological evidence shows that successful adaptive transitions typically required multiple generations, periods of experimentation, learning, and knowledge transmission before stable new patterns emerged. This suggests that modern climate adaptation requires both immediate action and long-term planning, beyond electoral cycles or quarterly business reports. Simultaneously, the accelerated pace of technological innovation in modern societies offers adaptive capabilities beyond what our ancestors possessed. Perhaps the most profound lesson from ancient human migration concerns our self-conception as a species. The archaeological and genetic record reveals that modern humans represent a remarkably young, closely related population with unprecedented adaptive capabilities. Despite surface differences in appearance and culture, all humans today share recent common ancestry and the biological and cognitive capacities that enabled our ancestors to overcome extraordinary challenges. This understanding of shared origins and shared adaptive capacity offers a foundation for addressing collective challenges like climate change. The same distinctively human characteristics that enabled our ancestors to navigate environmental upheaval, technological creativity, social cooperation, cultural transmission of knowledge, and cognitive flexibility remain our greatest resources for addressing contemporary environmental challenges. As we navigate the Anthropocene, an era defined by human impact on global systems, the lessons of our migrating ancestors take on renewed significance. They remind us that adaptation isn't optional but essential, that diversity represents strength rather than weakness, that cooperation outperforms isolation, and that our species' defining characteristic has always been our ability to imagine alternatives to existing conditions and bring those alternatives into being through collective action. The greatest lesson from ancient human migration may be one of perspective. Our ancestors faced environmental challenges with far fewer resources than we possess today, yet succeeded through innovation and cooperation. Their legacy isn't merely biological, but aspirational, a demonstration of human potential to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles through collective creativity and adaptive response. Did you know that every human living outside of Africa today carries Neanderthal DNA in their genome? This remarkable discovery, confirmed through advanced genomic sequencing in the early 2010s, revealed that early Homo sapiens interbred with Neanderthals after migrating out of Africa. On average, non-African populations carry approximately 14% Neanderthal genetic material, a small but significant contribution with profound implications for human evolution and adaptation. This genetic legacy isn't distributed randomly. Specific Neanderthal genes have been selectively retained because they provided adaptive advantages in new environments. For instance, Neanderthal-derived genes associated with keratin production, the protein essential for skin, hair, and nails, helped early humans adapt to colder, less sunny climates of Europe and Asia. Other retained Neanderthal genes influence immune function, suggesting they helped migrating humans resist unfamiliar Eurasian pathogens. Even more fascinating is the discovery that Pacific Island populations, particularly indigenous Melanesians, Papuans, and Aboriginal Australians, carry unique Denisovan genetic material not found in other human populations. Genetic studies indicate these groups derive up to 6% of their DNA from Denisovans, a mysterious human species known primarily from DNA extracted from a single finger bone found in Siberia's Denisova cave. This Denisovan genetic heritage includes the remarkable EPAS1 gene variant found in Tibetan populations, which enhances oxygen efficiency at high altitudes by regulating hemoglobin production. This adaptation allows Tibetans to thrive in low-oxygen environments where others experience altitude sickness. It represents one of the strongest examples of natural selection in recent human evolution, a genetic gift from an extinct human species that continues to benefit modern populations. Perhaps even more astounding is the discovery that certain Pacific Islander populations inherited a Denisovan genetic variant of the PDE10A gene, which affects spleen size and function. Modern carriers of this variant can have spleens up to 50% larger than average, enhancing the body's ability to release oxygen-carrying red blood cells during diving. This adaptation enables some indigenous populations to perform extended free diving for fishing and foraging, a perfect example of how ancient genetic exchanges continue to influence modern human capabilities. The genetic story doesn't end with Neanderthals and Denisovans. Recent genomic studies have identified DNA from potentially other unknown hominin species in African populations. While European and Asian populations were interbreeding with Neanderthals and Denisovans, African Homo sapiens were experiencing their own complex genetic exchanges with archaic human populations that have yet to be identified from fossil evidence. This ghost DNA appears in certain West African populations, suggesting a rich and complex evolutionary history within Africa that paralleled events in Eurasia. Did you know that blonde hair evolved independently multiple times in human populations? While we often associate blonde hair with Northern European ancestry, genetic studies reveal that Pacific Islanders in Melanesia developed blonde hair through an entirely different genetic mutation than Europeans. This represents convergent evolution, different populations finding similar phenotypic solutions through distinct genetic pathways in response to similar environmental pressures. The story of lactase persistence, the ability to digest milk into adulthood, provides another fascinating window into our genetic history. This trait, now common in populations with long dairying traditions, evolved independently at least 4 times in different human populations across Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. Each population developed distinct genetic mutations that achieve the same result, enabling adult milk consumption, a perfect example of convergent genetic adaptation to similar cultural practices. Equally fascinating is the genetic evidence of ancient adaptations to specialized diets. Arctic populations show genetic adaptations for metabolizing high-fat diets, while descendants of traditional farming populations show numerous genetic adaptations for processing starch-heavy diets. Populations with ancestral roots in forests with bitter plants often show enhanced ability to detect specific toxins, a genetic adaptation that protected against poisoning. One of the most recent major human adaptations relates to disease resistance. Genetic studies have identified that approximately 10% of Europeans carry a mutation that provides resistance to HIV infection. This mutation appears to have spread rapidly during historical plague epidemics, as it also confers some resistance to Yersinia pestis, the bacterium causing bubonic plague. This demonstrates how past disease challenges continue to influence modern health outcomes. Perhaps most remarkably, genetic studies have revealed that human evolution didn't slow as civilization developed. It accelerated. The transition to agriculture, urbanization, and new social structures created novel selective pressures that drove rapid genetic changes over the past 10,000 years. From disease resistance to dietary adaptations to behavioral traits, the human genome continues to evolve in response to cultural and environmental changes. The genetic legacy of our migratory past isn't limited to physical adaptations. Recent research suggests that certain gene variants affecting neurotransmitter systems, chemicals that regulate brain function, show different distribution patterns across populations with distinct migratory histories. These differences may influence a range of cognitive and behavioral traits, from novelty seeking to social bonding patterns, though scientists emphasize that cultural factors play an equally significant role in shaping behavior. Every human population carries a unique genomic signature reflecting their particular migration routes, environmental adaptations, and cultural practices. Modern genomic technology allows individuals to explore this heritage through ancestral DNA testing, revealing connections to ancient migration patterns and adaptation events that shaped their genetic makeup. What was once knowable only through archaeology and linguistics is now accessible through the genetic code carried in every cell of our bodies. This genetic diversity represents one of humanity's greatest strengths, a living library of adaptations to virtually every environment and challenge our species has faced. As we confront new global challenges like climate change and emerging diseases, this collective adaptive toolkit, encoded in diverse human populations, may prove crucial for our continued resilience and success as a species. The next time you look at a world map, remember, every continent, every island, every mountain range represents a challenge that our ancestors overcame with courage, innovation, and determination. From the scorching deserts of Arabia to the frozen expanses of Siberia, from the treacherous ocean crossings to Australia to the dizzying altitudes of the Tibetan Plateau, each environment presented seemingly insurmountable obstacles that were nevertheless conquered through human ingenuity and perseverance. This epic journey wasn't accomplished by a few celebrated heroes, but by countless ordinary families, mothers cradling infants, elders sharing vital knowledge, young hunters adapting their techniques to unfamiliar prey. These anonymous ancestors pushed the boundaries of human capability with each generation, leaving behind not monuments of stone, but something far more enduring, their genetic and cultural legacy carried within each of us. Consider the extraordinary courage required for these journeys. Moving into unknown territories meant facing unfamiliar predators, uncertain food sources, and unpredictable weather patterns without maps, guides, or prior knowledge. Each step into new territory required balancing caution with curiosity, tradition with innovation. This fundamental human capacity to venture beyond the familiar while preserving essential knowledge defines our species' unique evolutionary pathway. Our modern diversity is the direct result of these ancient journeys. The varied characteristics we observe across human populations today, from skin pigmentation adaptations to unique dietary enzymes to disease resistance factors, represent the accumulated wisdom of countless generations solving specific environmental challenges. The slight variations in appearance between human populations tell a story of climate adaptation. Darker skin protecting against intense UV radiation near the equator, lighter skin maximizing vitamin D production in northern latitudes, specialized eye shapes reducing glare in desert or snow environments. This diversity extends beyond physical appearance into cultural adaptations. The thousands of human languages, each with unique structures, reflecting local environmental and social contexts, emerged as migrating populations developed specialized communication systems. Traditional knowledge systems, from medicinal plant use to weather prediction to sustainable resource management, represent accumulated wisdom about specific environments passed through generations and refined through experience. When we examine this grand human journey through the lens of modern science, the connection between ancient migration and contemporary human diversity becomes clear. Genomic studies confirm what archaeology has long suggested. We are all descendants of African populations who embarked on history's greatest exploration. The genetic differences between human populations represent a tiny fraction of our genome, mere footnotes to our shared evolutionary story. This perspective transforms how we understand human diversity. Far from representing fundamental divisions, our differences celebrate the adaptive ingenuity of a single, remarkably successful species. Each population carries unique adaptations that contribute to humanity's collective resilience. This evolutionary heritage, the ability to adapt to virtually any environment through both biological and cultural innovation, remains our species' greatest strength as we face modern global challenges. The story of human migration offers profound insights into our contemporary world. It reminds us that borders are recent inventions superimposed on ancient migration routes. It reveals that cultural exchange and genetic admixture have been constants throughout human history. Most importantly, it demonstrates that cooperation and knowledge sharing have always been central to human survival and success. This shared heritage provides a scientific foundation for human unity. When we recognize ourselves as members of a young, closely related species, all descended from a small African population that embarked on an extraordinary global journey, artificial divisions based on superficial differences lose their power. The true human story isn't one of separate races or isolated populations, but of a remarkably adaptive species whose diversity represents its greatest evolutionary achievement. As we stand at another pivotal moment in human history, facing climate change, technological revolution, and global interconnection, the story of our ancestors offers both inspiration and practical wisdom. If small bands of humans armed with stone tools could adapt to ice ages, cross oceans, and thrive in every environment, from Arctic tundra to Amazonian rainforest, surely we can meet our current challenges with the vastly greater resources and knowledge at our disposal. The journey isn't over. Like our ancestors, we face environmental changes and technological transitions that will require adaptation. But we carry within us the genetic and cultural inheritance of history's most successful adapters, problem solvers who face the unknown with creativity, cooperation, and remarkable resilience. We are all descendants of great explorers who never stopped seeking new horizons. What did you think of this incredible journey of humanity's first explorers? Share your thoughts in the comments. Were you surprised by the interbreeding between different human species? Did you know about the genetic adaptations still benefiting people today? Which part of the migration story fascinated you most? Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, And subscribe to the Dawn of Humankind channel for more fascinating stories about our origins. Hit that notification bell to join us on our next adventure, exploring humanity's remarkable past, from the emergence of symbolic thought to the dawn of the first civilizations. Each chapter in our shared human story holds valuable lessons for understanding who we are and where we might be heading. Join our community of history enthusiasts as we continue exploring the extraordinary journey that made us human.